And the Pittsburgh Pirates once again cannot handle an ace. Nothing really new there, but Adam Wainwright close, a couple hits away from a no-hitter, as I can't say he fully turns back the clock because he's having a solid season, but Adam Wainwright deals, to say the least, with a 4-0 victory over the Pittsburgh Pirates, only allowing the 2 hits, both singles by Colin Moran, and the Pirates now have lost 7 in a row. This is the Pirates edition of Pittsburgh Postgame here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. I'm your host, as always, Mike Asti, and I am going to be joined by now somebody new to our family. I had him on one of these shows last year, and Cody Potanko, who is a writer for us over there at Pittsburgh Baseball Now, the newly unveiled Pittsburgh Baseball Now, the newest member of our Now family of networks. So you're going to actually find these postgame shows almost towards the end of the season, but we'll do some more of these before we close up shop over there also at Pittsburgh Baseball Now. As I said, the Pirates lose this one 4-0. They lose again to the Cardinals. They lose 7 in a row, but of course, wins and losses don't really matter this year. Once you already have 70-plus losses at this point, not really a big deal. Kind of knew that going in. This is about the individuals, and some have certainly played well. They've had a couple all-stars, even though one no longer on the club. We're going to talk about this game, kind of Adam Wainwright in general, how this Cardinal team maybe even looks headed into the postseason, and then a couple of these young Pirates that are now seeing more playing time because the likes of Adam Frazier and company are no longer there in Park and Alford, etc., and how they're looking, and then our thoughts on JT Brubaker tomorrow afternoon getting the bump for the Pirates to try to get off the snide. Cody, to get us started here, you kind of did throw a shot across the bow there at Adam Wainwright in the daily notebook for us over there at Pittsburgh Baseball Now, calling him old. I know my friend and colleague Matt Geica and I were talking on Twitter where he was saying that he thought he was washed up and done 5 years ago. Clearly not the case. He's still out there pitching well in Major League Baseball and still able to throw ace-like stuff for a playoff team, has 10 wins on the year. This isn't exactly the Adam Wainwright of 5 years ago, but certainly still a serviceable pitcher to say the very least. So is there a surprise factor for you that he would flat out dominate like this? Is it more of Wainwright still has this in him, or maybe Wainwright taking advantage of a young, lacking of pop and a weak Pirate lineup, which say tip of the cap to him if he's doing that. Other pitchers have done it, but which one of those do you think maybe we're seeing more in this game?
Thanks anyways, to begin, for having me on, Mike. It's
Absolutely.
a pleasure. But I think it's a combination of both. I did take a shot at Adam Wainwright, calling him a little over 2 million years old.
Right.
I'm definitely eating my crow. No pun intended, actually.
Yeah. Of course, Wil Crowe pitching against them and taking the L, of course, yes.
I do think he's a serviceable pitcher on a playoff team. He has that veteran savvy and presence. But I think the majority of it leans more towards a weak Pirates lineup in general. You have Brian Reynolds. You have Brian Hayes. And sure, Colin Moran's going to provide somewhat of a decent bat in the lineup. And you mentioned Park and Alford. Right. Alford did perform well in AAA, and I'm glad he's getting his shot. But I think the majority of it leads more towards just a generally weak Pirates lineup.
Yeah, Cody, you still with me there? I think we might have lost Cody here. I was hearing him earlier. But yeah, I think that's fair to say, of course. You have Adam Wainwright, a pitcher that certainly is capable of these type of performances here. You still with me, Cody?
Yeah, you got me?
Okay, go ahead. I thought we lost you for a second there. Go ahead.
No. I'm not sure where I left off for you, but I was talking about generally it's just a weak Pirates lineup.
Right. Okay.
But you do have the young guys performing well, like you said, and we will get into that later, I'm sure. But it's nice to see a guy like, Park performing well, Alford actually getting a second shot. I know in the last time we talked about Alford and him striking out a gajillion times.
We did oddly talk about him, yes, a year ago. That's right. Yeah.
So it's the Alford effect, man. So
yeah.
But Wainwright is a decent pitcher. I will give him that, but he does pitch for the evil empire and the St. Louis Cardinals. And I will never give him enough credit that he deserves, for sure.
Yeah, and Adam Wainwright, of course, 7 strikeouts in this game, a full 9, only allowing the 2 hits, an ERA of, I believe, 3.27 to this point now. Yeah, 3.27 is his ERA to this point. So, of course, he can still get it done. The Cardinals are kind of that cockroach of Major League Baseball. They're certainly going to still be there when postseason baseball comes, and the Pittsburgh Pirates, once again, will not be. Of course, the Pirates losing this one 4-0. Wainwright allowing only 2 hits. Both of them credit to Colin Moran, or this would have been a no-hitter, which wouldn't have surprised anybody either with, again, how lacking this Pirate lineup is right now. Mike Asti, Cody Potanko of Pittsburgh Baseball Now joining me as we're going to recap this game, but also talk about kind of these young players in this lineup that are now seeing action. So, of course, the Pirates do nothing in this game. It was a relatively quick game, and Wainwright kind of just shut the door from start to finish. Wil Crowe, though, had a solid performance. What are your thoughts on Wil Crowe? I mean, obviously, it's going to be overshadowed by what Wainwright's done. Obviously, he takes the loss in this game, but based on what we've seen for some Pirate starters to this point, 1 run off 4 1/4, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. His ERA, of course, above 5, throws almost 90 pitches. But this is a Pirate lineup or a Pirate team most of the year, rotation, that besides Brubaker and Tyler Anderson, they did for a while struggle to get pitchers to go through 5 innings. So even if they're quality to that point, they weren't going deep in games, and that was an issue for the bullpen. He doesn't go deep into this game, obviously, but we've seen a decent amount from him now. What are your thoughts on him? Is there a ceiling for him? Is he somebody that can be around? Have you just not seen enough? What are your thoughts on him?
I think a lot of us have to remember that Wil Crowe is very early into the baseball career.
Right.
I have seen flashes to where Wil Crowe is dominant, and it's a good signs there. And then you have outings to where he's throwing way too many pitches. He can't put batters away, and the stuff that he leaves hanging gets hammered. And we see that with Brubaker too, giving up a lot of gopher balls.
Right.
That seems to be the bugaboo again. But I think Wil Crowe's home is ultimately in the bullpen. You get him maybe once through the lineup, twice through the lineup, and you get him the hell out of there.
That makes sense. Yeah,
for sure. And when the Pirates eventually do have enough solid pitching, we may see a piggyback situation with Wil Crowe that could help. We might see an opener that could definitely help Wil Crowe. It's all the small things in baseball that could definitely help Wil Crowe out. I would, like I said, ultimately like to see him come out of the bullpen more often.
Okay. No, I think that definitely makes sense. I mean, again, he goes 4 1/4 or so. So we've certainly seen worse from Pirate pitchers to this point in the year, and certainly from starters. But it probably would make sense to have him fit into that bullpen sweet spot, because he did kind of lose it towards the end, and that was a lot of pitches to throw in only 4 innings of 90 pitches. So it wasn't like he was 1, 2, 3 and you're done. It was long at bats. The Cardinals have a little bit more in terms of veteran hitters. They're going to really make you work for it. Obviously, Goldsmith being that bopper in particular, that's a guy the Pirates don't have in their lineup. That's obviously the differences of these teams, just very simplistically, and able to have an okay performance. But again, nothing doing when you're facing Adam Wainwright. He goes the full, only allows the two hits and 7 strikeouts. So one of his better performances this season, as I said, 10 hits now, a 3.27 ERA. And what the Cardinals do and what he's been doing over the years gets better as the season goes on. So they're seeing this now from him as we're getting into mid-August. This is when they want to see this from him. Going to the Pirates lineup, though, and nothing entertaining about the Pirates lineup, nothing necessarily going to impress about this Pirates lineup to this point. This is 1 run off these 2 games against the Cardinals, getting shut out in this one, only the 2 hits by Colin Moran. But again, I don't know if much more was expected. Park, Alford, Moran still in there. Brian Reynolds still in there, of course. You see Polanco actually still getting at bats. Before we get to Polanco in a second and some of those veterans still getting ABs, what are your thoughts of Park and Alford? Because Park hitting 281, Alford hitting only 162. He's been a strikeout problem. He has been somebody that's lacking to get on base. These are obviously young hitters. These are obviously young kids in all reality, and nothing expected necessarily from them this year. But we're also not seeing much great from them either. Park had that solid game a couple nights ago, but positive and negatives from what you've seen from them to this point, because again, this season is all about evaluating individual players and what you expect for the future. Yes, some players played above themselves. A couple made an all-star game appearance. Maybe a couple could have argued for it earlier in the year, but none of that really matters now. And certainly one of those players no longer even on the club. Brian Reynolds did stabilize himself as part of the future. Probably that's great for the Pirates, but thoughts on Park and Alford, and then we'll get to everyone's favorite Gregory Polanco still raking away.
Yeah, good old Greg, man. But Park and Alford, it's a weird story with Alford. This is kind of his redemption here and now. Getting DFA'd and striking out a gajillion times. And then all of a sudden he showed up in AAA and started hammering the ball. And that kind of fit into the mold of, well, maybe he's a quad A player. And what I mean by that is he's way better than AAA talent, but he's not good enough for major league talent.
He's a quad A player. I feel like that's like the Pirates theme of the franchise.
I definitely understand that, and it's frustrating at times. But I honestly still can't believe we got Park in the Clay Holmes trade. I didn't think Clay Holmes had that much value of anything. Right. I mean, he had the stuff. And then you throw in Diego Castillo, who's been doing pretty well in Altoona. Shout out to Castillo. But I think Park can definitely be somewhat of a decent stopgap between Nick Gonzalez getting the call up eventually, or someone who else in the system getting the call up the middle, your O'Neal Cruz or whatever. I think Park is going to be a very solid leadoff hitter unless the Pirates find a more speedy guy who can actually get on base. We thought maybe that'd be G1 Bay. He's striking out a lot. And there's also off the field issues that we won't get into, but I think Park out of the two is more exciting than Alford. I still think Alford's a quad A player. Like I said,
it's how it looks to this point. He's not able to hit over 200 in now a chunk of at bats, even though we're obviously going end of seasons and obviously the team not in the race. But this is his cup of coffee. You got to impress now. And Park a little bit more versatile as well in the field, able to play short, able to play left.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Park has a little bit of pop in him. You saw the numbers in AAA with the Yankees. His slash line was incredible. I don't have the numbers with me right now, obviously, but
hit a home run the other day. Hit a home. He's hit a couple dingers. He has shown a little bit of pop.
Yeah, he has some pop, and I think he has a very good hit tool. He's not going to hit a ton of homers, but he will provide that sneaky pop. And maybe hit gap shots. And for a leadoff guy, that's pretty much all you want is sneaky pop, gets on base, and bats maybe 260, 280.
Right.
And I think that's Park through and through.
Yeah, and if he has the ability to steal some bases and play defense and set the table, that's obviously what you'd want as well. And again, we're seeing these players now because the season is basically done and it's basically a wash. And again, this is still early stages in a rebuild, which nobody wants to hear, but it is the case. We'll see how much we see them next year, the year after that, and where this team is at that point. I'm sure they're going to be looking for Derek Shelton and the team to take a little bit of a step next year because of the progress of some individuals this year. But again, next year is still likely going to be a losing season overall and still going to be a part of this process. But a part of the process, and somebody that I'd imagine not going to be around next year, that it's shocking he's really still around and actually still raking away in the lineup, talking about stolen bases. He actually, I believe, at one point was 9th in all of Major League Baseball in steals. So he has actually been able to put up some stats. And that is Gregory Polanco, who I'm alluding to. once again getting another chance in this lineup here, playing all through this series to this point. I think many thought, okay, there's not really value for him any longer, so you're not worrying about getting value back in a trade like the whole point of the Adam Frazier deal. He was playing above himself, got an all-star berth, so you sell high. It's a game of poker. That wasn't going to happen with Gregory Polanco. He has these Septembers every now and then, but at that point, you're done being able to make some moves. He doesn't really work that can help you even sell for him, but he is still there. And I think most people thought that once you see Alford, you see Park, you agree the season's done, you're just evaluating individuals, we would stop seeing Gregory Polanco. We're seeing more of Gregory Polanco. So number one, what are your thoughts on how often we are seeing him? Would you like to see him less, regardless of where he is in steals and overall stats, and even if he's maybe doing better than some would thought and not giving him enough credit that some argue? Does that really matter? And should we just be done seeing him because he's not going to bring value and he's a veteran and it's just over for him? And why do you think we are still seeing him so much if you are trying to evaluate young players? And we're seeing some of them, while they're struggling, we're still seeing them because, of course, this team is not worrying about wins and losses right now. But we're still seeing a lot of Gregory Polanco.
Yeah, we are seeing a hell of a lot of Gregory.
More than even earlier in the year. I mean, he was getting more breaks earlier in the season. And, yeah, we're seeing Colin Moran too, but at least he's getting a couple hits and got the couple hits in this game. Polanco still, even when he's playing well defensively and getting steals, he's still swinging and missing. And it just seems unnecessary out there.
It does seem unnecessary, and I will never, ever accuse a coach or a team of tanking per se, but it definitely isn't hurting to put Polanco if you're trying to tank out in right field every game.
Maybe they should be. So, hey, I mean, there's some teams out there in sports history that probably should have tanked. So
yeah, I mean, we missed out on Bryce Harper. Just saying.
There you go.
But no, I am getting sick of seeing Gregory Polanco. I've been getting sick of seeing Gregory Polanco for about 3 years now. I was willing to give him shot after shot after shot. When I was 13 years old or something like that, Gregory Polanco was the next big thing, and he was going to provide the savior to the city with McCutchen and Marte, and it just has not panned out. Injuries, too much swing and miss, and pure bad luck. And the guy is no longer the same. You see his arm is dead pretty much. He cannot throw runners out. He has thrown a few out, which is actually shocking. He is Mr. 1000 with stolen bases. So that's something, I guess. That's like saying you're the tallest little person at that point.
Yeah, 13 steals this year. Again, there's some speed there. He has actually flashed some leather at times defensively, but you can't steal home. You can't steal first base still yet. Maybe the rule will come, but you can't steal first base. And again, it almost seems for me it doesn't matter what he does. Even if he go out there and go 2 for 4 and jack a couple homers, what does it matter at this point? You're done with him as a Pirate. So what does it matter? What other options would you like to see in this lineup? What else would you maybe like to see this team do? You're seeing Alford out there in the outfield, but Polanco's still out there. He's taking at bats from someone.
Yeah. Ben Gamma unfortunately is hurt right now, and I would have liked to see more of him just to have an evaluation for other teams once the trade season opens up again. I was kind of disappointed we didn't deal him just to get something. But Ben Cherington himself has said we're not going to trade just to trade. So maybe next year Gamble could bring some more value. I'm not sure on his contract situation. So pardon me if I'm wrong there. But put Alford out there. Why not? Put him out in right field. He's done it before. Put Grandma out there. I really don't care at this point.
Right. I think that's kind of what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a sad situation in Pittsburgh to see Gregory Polanco still hucking and chucking out there like he's chopping wood. It's not a pretty sight. It really isn't. And sure, he hits a river shot every once in a while, and the kids go insane and fireworks go off and pretty lights. But at the end of the day, you have to put some form of a winning baseball team out there every once in a while.
Yeah, and Gregory Polanco 0 for 6 so far in this series and now hitting 199. So now back below 200 again. Gregory Polanco's days in Pittsburgh are numbered, and I think most of us would be done seeing Gregory Polanco now, and that would be totally fine.
Yes.
He's still going to get some money. So again, I don't see what Gregory Polanco provides you as a positive asset to the future. There's nothing to evaluate there. If we all agree the season is about evaluating individuals, certainly now with 70 plus losses, I don't know what you're evaluating with Gregory Polanco, what anyone's unsure of. What he is what he is. It is what it is, even though I hate that phrase. But that really is the case with Gregory Polanco. He can run. He sometimes can flash leather. He sometimes can occasionally pop one into the river. He has that weird kind of swing that can look majestic as a home run. Once every 4 months, he throws a Griffey swing out there. But every other time is just a risk of feast or famine too much with Gregory Polanco. And at his age, obviously the way the Pirates do business, no matter what you think of ownership, at his age, when you're not performing consistently enough, there's not even a debate to be had. So he's clearly not a part of the future of this franchise. Cody Potanko of Pittsburgh Baseball Now joining me here, our newly crowned Pittsburgh Baseball Now, unveiling that earlier today, actually. And this now our first post-game show as part of that site. So here, once again, make sure you hit that subscribe button here, your Pittsburgh Sports Live. Any of these post-game shows, any of our video content with any of our sites, whether it be Steelers training camp, Pitt WVU, Penn State action going down there in their football camps, of course, these post-game shows, any of my content there with my Mike Drop show, or even Mike Fakovkin and I with Mic'd Up in the morning. Hit that subscribe button. It'll give you a notification when anything is released here on the channel. And of course, these post-game shows will also live at Pittsburgh Baseball Now. And you need to head over there, PittsburghBaseballNow.com, the newest member of our Now family of networks. Cody, as we wrap things up here, because again, this game isn't much to analyze. Adam Wainwright just pretty much dominated. They lose 7 in a row. They have a game, though, with a quick turnaround tomorrow afternoon at 12:35. JT Brubaker will get the nod against Wade LeBlanc. It's certainly an outing that this is kind of what you'd like to maybe see from JT, and this is kind of setting up normally when you have a guy that maybe is your front of your rotation guy, certainly if they were a good team and the Pirates are not, that this is the guy you want to stop bleeding. If your offense is struggling, you lose 7 in a row, you can't beat the Cardinals, who actually you were able to beat earlier in the year. You have Milwaukee coming, who you always struggle with, even though you had that big win against them a week or so ago. This is the pitcher you want to pitch right now. Even though he's 4-11, he has been your best pitcher all year. What do you expect from him? And are you evaluating this individual performance from him maybe even tomorrow, even with that keen eye and a harsher eye than normal? Because this is when you want him to kind of be an ace to stop this bleeding. And if he go out there and maybe just suck up the joint, would that give you pause? You mentioned it's been a roller coaster ride, but he's out there tomorrow against Wade LeBlanc, trying to get the Pirates off of this losing streak, yet another one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I'm looking at it under an even bigger microscope. I am not as huge on JT Brubaker as some would say they are. I think he's a decent pitcher. I think he's more of a back end of the rotation guy. I think he's pretty much reached his ceiling of what we're going to see with him. He really needs to work on giving up home runs. There's a lot of solo shots he gives up, which solo shots won't kill you most of the time, but with lackluster lineup, it's going to kill you more times than not. I think JT has decent stuff. I really do. And when he's on, he's really on. And I know that sounds cliche, but
we saw it earlier in the year. The first month of the season, he was arguing for a Cy Young type of year. Obviously, that was way above himself, and he came back down to earth. But he was throwing gems every other start for a while.
Yeah, I think for 7 starts in a row, he was averaging at least 5 innings pitched. A couple of times he was throwing 6 innings.
Right.
Like you mentioned with Tyler Anderson, those two were fighting for the ace of the rotation in certain ways. I like JT. Don't get me wrong. JT's a good guy. I'm going to be looking at this with hopeful eyes, and I hope that I'm wrong. I was wrong about Adam Wainwright, of course, tonight. So
a little bit, yeah.
More times often than not, I may be wrong. So who knows? I think JT you see what you get with him. And if he can beat the Cardinals, great. That's awesome. We get a W. We avoid the sweep, and you move on. You go to Milwaukee. But yeah, JT is JT.
Yeah, I mean, to say the least, he certainly had that hot start to the year. Certainly him and Tyler Anderson kind of pitching above themselves and looking like maybe they could be front of the rotation guys on a good team. They're both probably 3 or 4 or 5 starters if you're looking at them being a pennant-winning team. They're certainly not in that top 10 pitcher in baseball that if you were a pennant-winning contender that you're going to get to the front. He's certainly not going to get to the front of teams that would have a Kershaw, that would have those type of pitchers, a Max Scherzer, etc. But certainly probably more than Pirate fans expected out of those two guys in particular. Certainly from what we saw earlier in the year, more than anyone would probably expected out of JT Brubaker. So even though you're criticizing him now, going into the season, I'd imagine you didn't even think he would give you what he's been giving. And the overall stat line, doesn't look to be great, 4-11, but wins are hard to come by on a team this bad who can't score runs, an ERA of just below 5. And that, again, has ballooned a lot recently, where that was at one point teetering 3. In fact, at one point it was below 3. He even had it below 2 for that first month of the season, and it has really skyrocketed overall, which, again, coming back down to earth. But this is a solid outing for him in terms of a solid spotlight outing for him. No one's going to be putting the spotlight on there with Steelers playing a game that day, but nonetheless, this is an important outing, I think, for him to be evaluated by the Pirates because he can prove he can stop the bleeding. You do want your quote-unquote ace to do that. And it is a quick turnaround for a young team, so someone's going to have to be the leader to try to pick this team up. Can it be him as the pitcher? If not, then, of course, you're just screwed and it's going to be 8 in a row. But we will see what will happen here. Of course, the Pirates take on the Cardinals again tomorrow afternoon at 12:35, continue the series on, and then they will have a weekend series against Milwaukee, who likely wants some revenge for how the last outing between these two teams finished, which is different than really the history of these franchises in the last 10 years. Cody, I definitely appreciate the time. What do you have on tap for us at Pittsburgh Baseball Now?
As of now, you guys are going to get the daily notebook first thing in the morning, so watch out for that. If you paid attention to the betting lines in the last one, you should not have listened to me. I said go over on the 9. That's why I don't gamble. I would lose all my money. I'm also working on a pretty cool piece that involves the great one, Roberto Clemente.
Okay.
There's a new unveiling that's going to happen soon. Can't give all the details away just yet.
Yeah.
And I'm working on a Hoy Park piece as we speak. We're going to have a Friday focus piece each week from me, hopefully.
Okay.
So lots of good things happening over at Pittsburgh Baseball Now, man. I'm excited to get going with this.
Absolutely. Excited to have you on board, you and the crew. It was that one site that we hadn't tapped into. So glad we're doing so now as a newest member of our Pittsburgh Sports Now family, Pittsburgh Baseball Now, again, at Pittsburgh Baseball Now over there, pittsburghbaseballnow.com, and at PGH Baseball Now on Twitter. So, of course, follow it, find it, consume the content. It's all there for you. It's in that Now network, so it's a part of our family of networks. And of course, as what Cody alluded to that he has coming, you have something for the fans that just want to remember when the Pirates were actually a contending championship team way back during the Roberto Clemente heyday, whether you're that old to remember it or you just want to pretend like you saw it because you're much younger and missed it. But that's the only thing you can wax poetic on, of course. Or if you actually want to look up to the rebuild and what maybe the future of this franchise exists, I'll have a story on Park coming as well. So that is a player that we are seeing now, that is being evaluated now, that could be a part of the future of this team whenever it actually starts to win, which of course is still likely years down the line. But Brubaker tomorrow afternoon, this team looking to snap the losing streak. We'll see how much more we see of Polanco. I think everyone can agree we probably have seen enough of Polanco, but it's about evaluating the individuals. They haven't given you much to this point, but again, got to take it with a grain of salt. Cody, I definitely appreciate the time. So Cody Potanko, again, of Pittsburgh Baseball Now, joining me here on this edition of Pittsburgh Postgame on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Once again, hit that subscribe button, bottom of the video. You get notifications whenever these Pittsburgh Pirate postgame shows go live. We'll try to do more of these before the season does close over there to help out Pittsburgh Baseball Now. And then, of course, the rest of our content, the rest of our video content, and the rest of things going on throughout the Now family of networks. Of course, that includes our Steelers coverage of their preseason game, their technical week 1 game, since when I was in Canton at the Hall of Fame game, that was not really week 1 of the preseason, but however you want to make sense of it, over there at Steelers Now, as the Steelers will take on the Eagles, and I'll have a post-game show after that one as well. So again, for Cody Potanko, for all of us at Pittsburgh Sports Live, and over there at the crew at Pittsburgh Baseball Now, the Pirates lose 4-0. The loss column continues to count, and Adam Wainwright deals. He turns back the clock. Adam Wainwright almost pitches a freaking no-hitter on this random Wednesday night. So great performance by Adam Wainwright. This Cardinal team certainly is pesky there and certainly going to be around. And if they get more performances like this from Wainwright, who knows what they could do come October. All right, that's good. All right, thanks, man.